Hello, everybody. How are we doing today? Today we are going to discuss rituals. And the reason I decided to do this was I saw so much about rituals being written about things people wanted to do around the solar eclipse and, how do you pick a time to do a ritual? And I'm going to tell you right now, my feeling is you you can do your own rituals, um, and you can create your own way of putting things up there. And I'm going to do a little lecture on kind of there's two R words. There's rituals and then there's routine. And routine is what we get up and we do every day. Do it every day, day after day after day. And we we get we get buried by the flatness of it. It's almost like an iron's coming over our life. And when I got to think about rituals, I got to thinking about rituals are a matter of timing. Hi, Dr. Gail, um, and Sandra Dell. And I have a couple of comments from people I'm going to bring in later of rituals they like. But when you think about rituals, there's actually the prehistory guys. They're a YouTube channel that does prehistory. Imagine that. Anyway, they're archaeologists and anthropologists that do a lot of pre-human history, and they have a tradition because they say in every article you ever read about when they've dug up some historic site, they're always going, it was used for ritualistic purposes. And as they said, you can't know that. So what they came to do on their show, and they run a 2-hour show every once in a while where they go over all the historical articles and bring new ideas to light. Whenever the word ritual comes up, they all have a swig out of a. One of them drinks non-alcoholic ale. The other one drinks wine because he lives in France. That thing about around rituals was a ritual they created to honor rituals. So anyway, when we hear the rituals, we sometimes think of something ancient. We think of something elaborate, highly ceremonial. And I can tell you the rituals that are going to become meaningful to you in your life are not going to be those rituals. The difference between a ritual and a routine is you get up and you do what you always do. And a ritual is you take time out and with great intention, you do what you're going to do. Now, I've had a friend who one time said the best time for her to calm down and think about things and just sort of get her life back in order is when she was sweeping the floors. Now, I offered to have her come over to my house anytime she wants. I'm here. You can sweep my floor. But she would mindfully blank her brain, but mindfully think about just sweeping that floor. And she said she gets some of her best thoughts that way. That's sort of like people who say, sometimes I get my best ideas when I'm in the shower. It's because they've broken out of their regular habit of doing where they're going to be and how they're going to feel. And I also think water coming all over our bodies has a lot to do with that one. But rituals are whether they had rituals or not. And how can you tell? Well, one of the rituals you can see, and I think it's a ritual, is the cave drawings that they did on their caves, the buffaloes and the deers and the different things. And quite honestly, one of my favorite, this will not amaze you since I watch these sorts of shows, one of my favorite courses in college was art history. And most people think, oh, art history would be so incredibly boring. You had to fight to get into Mary Vernon's art history class. And I remember when she talked about the caveman drawing on the wall, and she said, some people say it's just some people like to draw. They see something they want to draw. And why should they have not had the same compulsions we had? She totally agreed with that. But she said, suppose you attach, and this will tell you how long ago I was in college. Suppose you attach to, I'm going to draw on my bedroom wall a pound of ground beef. and I'm going to put 79 cents beside it. And so I'm going to go out and I'm going to find that ground beef for 79 cents. That was sort of her theory of why they drew buffaloes and game on the walls. But they also drew people. They also drew things they did, kind of things they did, stick figure people things they did. And those are ritualistic things too. But when you think about why do humans create rituals, when you look at the rituals, things we have that are most ritualistic, we have birth and death. How do you breathe new life into this world? How do you let a life leave this world? You have planting and harvest, which are another things because these are all really important to our own survival too. Marriage and separation, they all have their own. Unfortunately, separation doesn't have quite the ritual marriage does. They should have some. We're getting divorced parties so that we can get it all out in the open, but that doesn't happen. Changing of the seasons, beginning and ending a journey at home, and movements of the sun and moon. And movements of the sun and the moon. Dorothy Morgan, you'll see a comment she sent me. She reminded me that she does quite a bit with using the phases of the moon as a way to create your own set of rituals or understand your own timing. And it gets big, it gets small. And tomorrow it's going to be hidden because we're going to be looking at the dark side of the moon, but we're also going to have a solar eclipse. So that's one of those, we're humans and we see it, we go, that's a big change. I'm going to do something about that. And why do we look at these things and why do we make these changes? Because sometimes they're to remind us of the good things that are going to happen here, and sometimes they're just a way to stick a stick in the ground and say, this is what we're living through. Now, each ritual becomes like a marker for us. And years and years ago, I had a garden out in back of my condominium. Long story how we ended up with it. But we ended up with this big, long herb and vegetable garden. It helps if you're on the board of directors, but that's one of the reasons it was there. And I had it for about 10 years. I planted this garden. And you always put your onion sets out by Valentine's Day. They had to be in the ground by Valentine's Day. And I remember one year I was out there, it was the 14th of February, and I was out sticking my onion sets in the ground. Now, mind you, I live in Texas. I know people can't even see the ground on February 14th. But for where I live, that's when you put the onion sets in. And one of my neighbors was coming home from work. He was going down the back sidewalk. And he said, what are you doing? And I said, oh, I'm planting onions. And I said, you have to do it by Valentine's Day. And he said, oh my God, it's Valentine's Day. So he turned on his heel and ran away and got his wife a Valentine card because apparently he'd missed the date. A year later, I was out there in the back, putting my onion sets in again, and he came by and he laughed and he said, I remember the card this time. And when he and his wife finally moved out about 3 years later, when they moved out, by the time they'd moved out, I taught them how to use all the fresh herbs that were in the garden, all the thymes and all the basils. And I used to have 6 or 7 kinds of basils and all different kinds of thymes and fresh tomatoes and miniature cucumbers. And anyway, he and his wife had gotten addicted to coming down, and I taught them how to trim the herbs so they could just take herbs home for their supper. Because Bill and Susan and I were going to eat all those herbs anyway. But that when I was thinking about planting and cycles and reminding things and how they touch base with you. And if that had not been a part of my life at that time, I'm not sure I would have ever thought of that guy again. But I thought of him. He moved to Grand Prairie somewhere. I don't know. Anyway. Rituals give us a time to say something's beginning, something's ending. I'm releasing this. I'm welcoming that. I'm welcoming this new energy into my life. And I'm choosing where I want to go next. Now, ritual itself won't bring the change, but it helps us recognize and participate in change activities. Ritual tools for focus, and this is something I think a lot of people ask me about. One of the greatest challenges in our modern life is we have so much news, so much information coming at us from all different directions. It gives us a moment to put a boundary around a thought and say, no, you go over there, or to pull a thought in and make it a part of your life. 5 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever you decide. It can help you focus on what you're going to pay attention to now. This can be very powerful. And you can believe it again, I was reading an article today about a group that they took 20 adults. They took them on a 7-day meditation retreat. And they had the little medical guys there taking their blood and all that stuff, see what come out of it. Well, the effects on the biomarkers in them about relaxing and getting so much calmer, releasing cortisol and stuff, was so great that after the first test, I said, this can't be right. They've run this thing now 5 or 6 times, and they've run it in other locations with other institutions. And what they're finding is that first group was right. And that by just getting mindful, they're doing it now where they're checking it if you don't have to be in kind of a retreat environment. But they're just saying being mindful about what happens around you can change how you see. I need to take 10 minutes. I'm going to go think about what's important for me. And the physical world can focus. You can bring it in to focus on your inner world. Now, what are things you can bring into your world that are simple, that are okay? And this is what I do every day. When I'm in business, the candle's lit. The candle's going on this end of the table. I have a pillar candle, and I light it up when I come in to start work in my office. When I started working on this stuff this morning, I lit it, and it'll go out when I get up from my desk. But you can use candles. You can use, wouldn't have any of these around, would I, either? Crystals can be helpful. You can have cards. You can use water. And if you've ever seen a singing bowl filled full of water, you see how the vibration of the bowl goes through that water. And water carries vibrations too. You can have flowers. I never have enough flowers around me. I do have a little orchid up front that I'm keeping alive. I don't live in a very sunny place. I had lit some incense today and used that. I listened to some music. When I woke up this morning, my meditation had music in it. This is the one I don't do. I'm bad. But I should, because when I have proof, positive, because I have my notebooks, when I do write something down, I begin to move things in the direction I want them to move. And I think I've told you this one before, so I'm not going to say stop me if I've told you. But my daughter and I were going to have to move, and we're going to have to move by the middle of January. And so one Sunday afternoon in October, I sat her down and I said, let's write down all the things we would both like. Even if we know with the current market in Dallas and what things cost, blah, blah. We're moving to be closer to her work. She wanted to be no more than 15 to 20 minutes on the surface roads, not having to get on a highway to get to work. And she wrote out her list, and I wrote out my list. And she wanted a fireplace, and I wanted a patio where I could grow things. And if we could have another small little den area where I could set up my cars and to do my thing for that. We had to have a washer-dryer connection big enough for our washer and dryer, because I'm spoiled. I will not live without a washer and dryer. Just won't do it. And, it had to be 20 minutes from her work, 15 to 20 minutes from her work on a surface road. And, they had to be 2 complete suites they had to, hopefully, so we could each have our own bathroom, which meant we'd have another half bath somewhere for when we had guests. So that we wrote this all out, and I had it in my little notebook, and I got kicked out of bed that Monday morning, and it was a wet, rainy, drizzly, ugly, not quite cold, but colder than it's been morning in Dallas. And that's not a day you want to drive in Dallas, because the first time the roads get wet after it's been hot and dry for a while, there's an oil slick on the roads and your cars skid, and it's just a mess. And I got up and I said, oh, it's wet, I'm cold. I'll get a cold. I don't want to go out in there. And my guide said, you're going looking today. Today's the day. So I put in my little search engine and spit out 3 likely places to look. The first place I looked was lovely, but they couldn't guarantee a ground floor unit, and they didn't have elevators. So I told them I'd get back with them in December when they knew what would be available. Went to the second place. Their doors were locked up tighter than a drum. And I went, okay. So I almost didn't go to the third place. And it said, yes, you will. So I drove through a rainstorm on the way to the third place. But just as I got to the third place, the clouds parted. I looked up, and it looked a whole lot like the condominium association I'd lived in, that I'd owned in for years. And I thought, I was really happy there. I lived there 25 years. This looks like that. This is kind of cool. Go in, meet the woman who runs the place. They are so full that she doesn't even have, she's turning units, but she has not, you can't take people into units that haven't been completely turned. It's kind of a law. And so she said, I'll give you a call in a week or so, and you and your daughter can come up at lunch and see it. And I thought, well, that'll be a good test, because Casey can drive from her university up here. So she called me. We went in, and we walked through and looked at the 2-bedroom unit. It was 2-bedroom, 2-bath. Would have been fine, but it was in the apartment part. And I was like, well, it'd be fine. It would have done what we needed to do. Was in our price range. And I told the woman, well, I'd be interested in one like this. She said, this one's already been leased, but I'll keep it in mind. So we get back to her office, so she's going to get all my ways of being reached. And she goes, who in the universe loves you? And I said, what do you mean? And she said, I just got a note left on my office. And she had told me the apartments were in the middle, but there were 30-some condos that were on the edge of the property, that surrounded the property. And she told me those had everything we wanted, the fireplace, the den, everything. But she said people who lease in there, they lease in there for 10 years or more. Everybody who's been there is a long-term lease. No one's talking about moving. She said, someone really loves you. And I said, why? And she said, exactly the unit you want, you and your daughter want. The couple has to move out because of a medical emergency in the wife's family, but they can't move till January because of his job. So if you're willing to look at the floor plan and agree with me, she couldn't let me in to see it because it's occupied. If you're willing to take it, you can get it today if you put down just a pet deposit. And I said, okay, trusting soul that I am. And that's where Casey and I lived very happily for 2 years. And it had everything we wanted in it, down to the last den with the half bath off of it. Patio was off the den. It was great. The reason I'm telling you this story is that I was reading it at the vintage store I was at, and I was telling the girls about it, and I had my notebook that I had the notes from what we wanted in the unit. And it said, 15 minutes from the campus. And so the woman said, well, how far is it from the campus? I said, oh, it's really close. It's not very far. She said, no, let's look it up. It was exactly listed in mileage as being 15 minutes from her campus. And so I'm telling you it's a ritual I should use more often about writing about where I want things to go. Take that as a lesson, do it more often, and your life will be better. So that's that part of the ritual. Then, now, not everything's going to happen just because you write it down. There are going to be times for beginnings, times for growing, time for harvesting, time for releasing, and also the one that I'm not terribly good at, time for resting. When the universe says, hey, everything can slow down now, you can rest. Haven't had much of that. And going to rituals, even the ones we make for ourselves, it ties us to the larger cycles of life and what's going on around us. I got a whole lot of ways to work with the sun and work with the moon, reminding us that things like Lionsgate, it's a portal date. It's 8/8 Lionsgate, but there's a portal date in every month. There's 1/1, there's 2/2, there's 3/3. I think you're seeing the pattern. And those are also dates you can circle on your calendar and think about, what am I entering into? And look at what your personal year is, which is where you add up. Numerically, you add your birth date, your birth month, and the digits of the current year. That'll tell you what personal year you're in. And look and see how that number, if you know a little bit about numerology, you can work with it that way. But basically, rituals remind us, where am I? What am I creating? Where am I going? What needs to change? And what special dates might be coming up that can help me more clearly focus on this. There's also, people say, well, how can I release things? I was taught by an astrologer, and it was not Dorothy Morgan, that you write out all of your things you want to let go of when the moon's full and it's shining on you, and you burn that list. Now, I've also had people tell me, no, don't burn lists. So do what makes you feel comfortable. I burnt lists. I had no problem. Got rid of a couple old boyfriends that way. You can create your own ritual. A personal ritual is something you tie to. And obviously, my personal rituals that are special ones that I pick out are going to go back to crystals. And somebody says she's in a 7-year, Sandra Dell. She feels like a hermit. That's fine too. And when you're thinking about creating a ritual for yourself, this is going to be the end of this, I promise. You're not all leaving, so I guess it's not too bad. We need the intention. Why am I doing this? The space. Where will I do it? What time will I do it in? Object. Any physical items you think help you, whether it's a bunch of onion sets to stick in the ground or a plant to stick in the ground, or I have a Ukrainian flag on my desk every day. It's these two crystals. It's the yellow and the blue, and I have yellow, blue, yellow, blue, yellow, blue. It's set up like, and when I sit down at my desk every day, it makes me mindful to go back and pray for the people in Ukraine. What do I actually want to do? What do I really want to do? There have been days when I've sat down, I'm really going to get into this ritual, and then I'm going, I don't feel it. So I don't do it. I mean, that's my way. You can power through if you want. And how will I acknowledge the closure of that ritual? How will I say, this is complete? You can choose a quiet place. You can find a deck of tarot cards. You find a deck of oracle cards. I'm going to go to my desk because I have a whole bunch of stuff there that you can use for this. Okay. These are two oracle decks that I like. Denise Lynn, Sacred Forest. This is a crystal. I'll pull one of those. And this is my own personal deck. This is when I read more. Read from more. And I keep it in what is considered a ritual idea. The sack I carried in is silk, and they say when I first start out in tarot, you have to wrap all your cards up in silk. Spend a small fortune in silk. You don't have to. And this is just a fun deck I have around. I have crystals here. I have big crystals here. And my candle, you can see right over here. If I move it any further over, it's going to burn the cord on my camera, and we don't want that. And really, it's true. Do not, if you get to a point, you get it all set up, give yourself some space, because, even if it's on the day it's supposed to be, like I have a friend who tomorrow is doing a total solar eclipse day. They're fasting. They're meeting with 2 other people. They're going to be doing some prayer, some chanting. They're going to play some pipes. They're going to pound on a drum. They're going to do the deal. I'm going to wake up. I'm going to do what I do. And I'm going to have a wonderful day. And I'm going to enjoy the solar energy. And repetition. I think when you do the lunar cycles, which I should have had Dorothy on with me to discuss lunar cycles, but when you do the lunar cycles, you can go over on her channel. She talks about it all the time. You'll just kind of get drawn into doing the lunar cycles. You might create a ritual like I did with the list to find the apartment. That was a moment. I don't write out a list every month to go find an apartment because I don't like to move. And when you create a ritual that you do frequently, then that becomes a practice. My stones that recognize the Ukrainian flag, that's a practice now for me. And then you don't need an elaborate okay, this is what you don't need. You do not need to have the perfect candle. You do not need to have the perfect crystal. You do not need to perform something exactly in the right order, at the right moment, at the right minute. You don't need an elaborate altar. You certainly don't need to spend a lot of money on them. Ritual just means you need to be looking for meaning in your life, breaking from routine. Simple ones you can do, and I promised I'd make this short, didn't I? Choose one object that represents you right now. Create a second object in your mind, or actually have it in your hand, of where you want to go. Put them a couple inches apart. And then ask the object that represents you now, what am I willing to let go of? What can I leave behind? What will move me forward? And then the second object, you ask, when will I be ready to move forward? Now ask, what is the one action I can use to move me there? And you can move your stones slightly closer to each other. And then if you don't feel like it's done, you can come back the next day, go through that same simple set of questions. Where am I? Where do I want to go? What is it going to take to get in the in-between? And then when you feel like you've gotten the answer you need, you can take those stones and put them back where they would normally be. Sometimes our intentions are invisible, a hope, a decision, a prayer. Sometimes they're very physical, or they're part of what we want in our human territory. What we mostly want to remember is we want to learn something from the process. I am releasing something. I am beginning again. The sun will continue to rise, and the moon will continue to go through its phases, and the seasons will continue. We now understand those cycles, and we're trying to help interject our intentions and our energies in those cycles. So the next time there's a full moon, a new moon, a solstice, an equinox, we just had Lionsgate, birthday, anniversary, simply a quiet morning when you're not quite sure what else you want to do, or like my daughter who had a tooth that went nuts and they had to put a new crown in her mouth yesterday. She's sitting quietly on the couch, trying not to go ouch. You stop, you focus, you set an intention, you take the action that your mind makes you aware that you can take. Allow yourself to move forward. That's the hardest one. Are we allowing ourselves to move forward? Because sometimes ritual isn't about making something magic happens. Sometimes it's simply paying attention to the magic that surrounds us. That's my lecture on rituals. Christy, I've got a smoky quartz I purchased and brought it home the next day. After sitting at my desk, it had a large crack through it. That's just because it's reacting to the energy in your house, Christy. When I bought this, when I was given this crystal, actually I was given it. It's a wand, and it was clear. It looked like it was poured water. It's absolutely clear. And and I've had this 7 years now, and every time there's a major change in the earth, it gets another inflection, and you can see them. I think if you look closely, look a little like rainbows in there. And I swear, I'm like wondering, how's this stone going to stay together? Because there keep being planes of energy that go through it, but it's hanging in there. Lovely stone. And this is another natural quartz crystal. It's almost clear in the middle, but out at the points, it's getting those little inflections growing in. So that's just because they grow and change like we do. But, just ask it. You could sit down and ask it why it had a crack. Hold it in your hand. It'll give you an answer. My stones talk to me, and they don't have a pill for that. So let's see. Okay, this lady put quite a long answer. She uses 4 walls of her living rooms this direction. I have altars set up for each direction, north, south, east, and west. And she does like I do, north wall earth, east, south wall fire, east wall air, and west wall. Mine are a little different. My earth is east. East is where things rise up from, but everybody has their own traditions. So, and she's a practicing pagan, so it varies a lot throughout the year. I'm also an astrologer, and I use the energies coming from the cosmos. It varies. I've used sun and moon rituals for holidays, and she goes on. She wrote a long thing, so I'm putting it all up there. The pagan community, and I've been over various parts of it. Bottom line is, the principal guide through is always use your own intuition. And that's the truth. Use your own intuition from pagan community. And Catherine T. also had comments, and she said, I cleanse my crystals regularly, follow astrologic energies best I can. From what I understand, thank you, Dorothy, in order to manifest the best possible outcomes. And so she went on. So when I'm focusing on my life, this also includes not manifesting anything during certain times like the eclipse season. New moons are excellent times for manifesting, full moons for letting go, with the exception that eclipse, due to the unprecedented nature and energy. I leave eclipses alone because I watched the solar eclipse that went over the U.S. It was absolutely wonderful. Then I had a series of small illnesses after that, and a friend of mine who works with energy, when she did energy around me, she said something broke the kind of shell that I have around my energy to keep it whole. And she said, first of all, she didn't know I had a shell. She said, you have like a shell or a cage or something? I said, yeah. And she said it had gotten cracked on my lower right side, and that's where all the pain and stuff was coming from. And she sealed it up with her little friends. They fixed it. They fixed it for me. And this is Dorothy Morgan's. Use the lunar phases for the best outcome in regard to my current focus. And that's what she put. And then Wounded Healer. I always cleanse my crystals and actually go out and talk with the moon. And that's fine. And I tell people, cleanse your crystals in the moonlight. If you have a window you can put them in, it's slightly better. Then I don't know what neighborhood you live in. I live in a nice neighborhood, but I'm still not putting all my crystals outside. I'm also not moving to the sun. I use singing bowls and chimes. And if you're really desperate to cleanse your crystals, just clap really loud over them as a cleansing movement. That'll do it. And Sandra Dell is healing everyone. Woo, girl, you got a problem. You working on stuff. And do you guys have any other questions? I talked a whole lot. I probably said a lot. Oh, in the text below this show, there's a link to a YouTube show. And I'm fortunate enough to live in a city that's large enough that the Buddhist monks, once a year, they come to Dallas and they build a healing mandala. And if you've never seen them do this, they build it out of tiny grains of rock. They used to use plant seeds and all kinds of stuff. I've seen them do it 3 times. They come to an Asian Chinese museum here, and it has an extension of that museum now, like right where my daughter works at her campus. And they're going to be putting one up there next month. And you can go watch them build this, and it's fascinating. They tap the colors out. It's all made of sand. And then at the end, they sweep it all up. They take it away. They've said their prayers. In creating that mandala, they've created their prayers. And their prayers are normally for, well, it's always a healing mandala, but it's normally for the Tibetan people to be relieved from the burdens they've had since China took over. And Marianne Flaherty, should you clean your crystals, and if so, what do you use to clean them? Yes, some crystals are self-cleaning. If you look up the characteristics of crystals in a metaphysical sense, they'll tell you what cleans itself. I used to always think you could put crystals in running water. Years and years ago, they said, put it in running water. Don't do that with selenite, because selenite is just very, 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 very hard salt. But not so hard that if it gets wet, it doesn't go back to being salt. I had the most gorgeous selenite rod, and I soaked it. When I took it out of the water, it was full of pits. So it's called the Mohs factor, MOHS, and it will tell you how hard it is, and it will also tell you if it can go in water. But there are other ways to clear them. You can clear them with a candle. You can clear them with incense. And if you want to clear them with certain incense, I get incense. This is one that's good for this. I get no money from these folks. This is not a commercial. This is called Dragon's Blood. You can get white sage. They're in drops. You can put them in a spray bottle and mist it around your crystals, and with the intention that it's cleaning them, that you're seeking to clean them. There's also crystals that clean crystals. Selenite crystals clean other crystals. So you can put a whole row of crystals on selenite, and it'll clear the energy. And it's mostly energy that you're clearing out of them. Some shungite and obsidian, these very, very dark crystals. This is my obsidian, rainbow obsidian. If you take this out in the sunlight, it's full of rainbows of different colors. It's just the most incredible stone. That one sort of self-cleans. Bronzite self-cleans. Shungite self-cleans. So you don't have to worry about that. But that's if you really And also, when you're looking up stones and what to handle, if you're handling malachite for very long, go wash your hands immediately, because malachite is blue because of the copper that's in it, and that copper actually leaches into your skin. That's why you don't leave really pretty bowls of stones that might look like candies that small children want to suck on, because there's all kinds of minerals in crystals that, while they help us as a whole, they will not help a small child that sucks on them. And there's also a woman sent me some beautiful thing called vandonite. Let's see, it's here. Yes. You can see. It's called vandonite. It's a beautiful stone. It comes out of Russia. There's a big warning. This one actually came out of Morocco, and very cooling, can be used to reduce inflammation and fevers, sometimes used to contain and limit diseases such as cancer. And on the back of it, it has a complete explanation of it. It's chemical formula, just in case you didn't know. It's got hexagonal crystals, beautiful. Key properties about it. It forms in a hollow center. It's like part of a geode. That's where it comes from. But you should always wash your hands after handling it, because it's almost tied to areas that have had a lot of irradiation. So, thank you, little card, because I went, and after that I started reading up on other stones. So, not to make you afraid to go touch stones. I mean, you're going to have to really touch them a lot, but it's nice to know. Better than the FDA these days, telling you what's dangerous. Let's see. And Catherine's, I agree with you about not doing a ritual if you don't feel it. If it's not there, don't. But don't. If you consistently don't feel it, then I'd I'd put together a little practice. Why don't I feel like taking control with intention in my life? And plain old rocks, those plain old rocks are crystals. I mean, okay, crystals are mineral forms that have formed in irregular patterns and have a crystalline structure. Otherwise, they're stones or rocks, and they get changed lots of different ways. But I call them all crystals. They all shine for me. And let's see. Oh, someone's saging her new apartment tomorrow, intending peace, passion, prosperity, pleasure, and purpose. That'll be easy. All those P's in there, lady. Good for you. Hi, Dorothy Morgan. We've been talking about you. Did your ears tingle? And oh, well, thank you. I enjoy the relevance you bring to the evolution of my spirituality. And that's really what I try to do. I try to teach people a little bit all the time about what their spirit life can be like. Because trust me, mine gets stuck in the mud too, guys. But our bells, yes, bells are very ritualistic. And sometimes people can hear bells and they're spiritual warnings. I had a client who had that. When she heard this one bell, she knew to run for cover. And Nancy Cast is going to clear all her crystals. Yeah, your crystals have been through it. They've been moved around a bit and through a lot of stress. It's a good time to clean them. Last time I moved, no, when I moved into the apartment that the one my daughter and I found that I like so much, I had developed rocks, but I had literally boxes of rocks. But I didn't make any of them very big because, for one, I had to pick them up, and I couldn't pick them up if they got too heavy. Anyway, when they were moving these small boxes, these big burly moving guys, they said, "What's in these rocks?" I said, "Yes, there are rocks." So when we finished moving me, we put all the rock boxes up, and I started pulling the different crystals out and explaining to them what they would do for them or how they could work with them. And I ended up giving each one of the guys who moved us a rock. The guy was just so excited. He got a rose quartz. He was so excited to take it back. His wife loved pink. Okay. I'm reading comments. Yes, it's true about the FDA. They do not take care of us. I was telling you how to work with months, so you have the 4 signs of the moon. You have new moon, waxing moon. Waxing means getting bigger. Full moon means full, obviously. Waning moons means getting smaller, then you get back to the new moon. I remember when I was studying astrology and I was working with friends, and I go, "Oh, you were born on a waning moon." And they go, "So is that getting bigger or smaller? Why do they both have to have a W?" Just think about waxing as when they built candles. They dip it in the wax and dip it in the wax till they built it out. Waning means like tides that go out. And if you go to Dorothy's channel, she will love to explain to you. She loves to talk about the cycles of the moon. And for a while, I did her cycles of the moon, but I was in the middle of teaching a bunch of other stuff. And I kind of, sorry, Dorothy, let it go. But I do the new moon and the full moon. Cardamancy Mesquite, good afternoon. It's J Cat Lady. Good, J Cat Lady, I hope you're getting better. Oh, my classes. Okay. Apparently, I need to do a dance to the to my computer gods because they're not behaving. My website is not now connected to my store anymore, and my store will only let me in if I do the boogie and say the right words, and then sometimes it doesn't. They always write me back because I did pay them my annual fee 4 months ago, but they're not working. So Jeffrey and I are starting another tarot class, and it's going to start on the 5th of September. And there's a lady in the chat who I will get all the information to today. And we have the whole curriculum printed out so you can see it. If you're interested in that class, send an email to crystaldirections.class@gmail.com and I will see it. There's so much now in my Nancy Jean has been gotten out to so many different groups, and I know they're trying to lead me in the correct spiritual direction, but what they're creating now is a fog in my email. So if you want to know about the class, you want to know more information, have any questions about it, you can communicate through there. And I'm sorry I don't have my www.crystaldirections.com. I've talked to my 2 different web people. They're working on it. It's just a mess. That may change, look a little different soon anyway. The other thing is, yes, I will be sending a thing out to all the people that want to know about The Accidental Medium by Tracy Whitwell, the book club. I have the books. I had 4 people win books. I only had the mailing address for 1. So if you are in the audience today, I did keep your names. Rossi says 111. You have a book. I don't know where to send it. Crossbows. Gin Palace. Catherine T., I sent you and I talked about it. I sent you yours. Silverwood 1. I don't have an email for you. So I don't know what to say. And then the fourth one is Indigo Child. I don't have a mailing address. I can't stick them in the chat. Can't do it. I've got your books right here. Got your name in the book. As soon as I get a mailing address, I'll get it to you so you can do it. Those are going to start also in the first week of September because I'm going to take August off. And I'm playing I think we're all wired that way from starting school around the 1st of September. That's when we start gearing things back up. Still doing readings. If you want to get a reading, you could send that information to the class thing saying I'd like a reading. One lady who I owe a grid to, when I was in the process of creating your grid, my printer died and I only have had a printer back for 4 days. I had to call them and say, this is still under warranty. You're not going to believe what they make you do. They make you take pictures of the inside of the printer. I guarantee you there's nothing they can do. I've talked to my kids that are techies. There's nothing they just do it to hassle you. But anyway, they did send me a new printer. I have one now that prints. So I will be able to get that grid together. What can I say? It's been that kind of a month. I'm going to go back and see if we have any more comments. I like that. August is a month of Sunday nights. Yes, it kind of is. It's really hard to get it. Send your email to send it to, get rid of this banner. And if you send it to this, if you send your mailing address there, I will get the book off to you. Okay. And we had a comment about the books for the book. Catherine T. said book 1 took 3 evenings. It was awesome. Thank you, Nancy Jean. I'm keeping my eye on my mail delivery. And this is a person who said, my 6-month readings are awesome. So you can't go to my website and see my endorsements or anymore because nothing works. It's so frustrating. And I just get to the point that I take a pill every day so I won't have a stroke. So I am not going to drive myself to have a stroke. I'm going to get solved other ways. Not that I should rag on you. Everybody has their problems. But my problem today is I'm trying a new ratatouille recipe. I found that sounds absolutely marvelous. So when I get off the air, I'm going to be cutting up eggplant and zucchini and tomato and fun stuff because it's all really great out of the garden right now. And I'm going to be making that. And what else? I've got readings this week. I do have a couple of readings this week. I have some people that always have me read them on their birthdays. And so we have a standing opening for that. And I do kind of a 12-month reading, and then we go into lots of personal questions after that for their birthday readings. Okay, I'm trying to have a ritual in honor of my husband, Bill, who died on August 12th, 2020. There's something he really liked to do. And if you can focus on that or focus a small donation towards that, Nancy, I think that will help. I'm sorry, he died on August. This will be 4 years. Yeah, my husband died on November 19th, 2004. And, I have a very political household. My 13-year-old at the time looked at me and said, it was Bush getting reelected. That's what did it. Dad just couldn't put up with it anymore. Dad was well beyond the point of no return at that point. But every year you do get those anniversary dates, but they get easier and more. They don't get easier, but they become more relevant to your life as time passes on and you look at things happening to you around that date. That's what's really good for people who keep diaries. They can see the ebbs and flows of their life in their diaries. And you can do that if one ritual I do have every day. Every day I pulled a tarot card. And today my tarot card was the Six of Swords, which that teaches me, like Nancy Schaefer, to have compassion, move on with your life, but things are going to move forward, and you're going to go in that boat, and it's going to be a good, productive journey at the end, even though you may feel very downtrodden at the time it happens. Today, why am I doing that? Because I've been trying to re-energize some things I've been working on, and I'm finding it a little harder to focus and work on them. So I've just decided it's the eclipse. I'm better off than a lady I read. She called me up this morning and she said, we have to talk right now. And I said, sure. And she has a crazy boss. And I mean, a really crazy boss. I mean, genuine crazy. And she said, I can't wait till the 12th to look at what's going to happen. I want whatever's going to happen now. And I said, okay, you've just had your first adult lesson in time. It doesn't happen any faster than it can happen. And she started laughing and she said, oh dear. Blessings to you, Nancy Schaefer. And there's other people who, when those big events happen to you and they happen around you, you remember. And this husband passed on November 5th. Okay, that's enough husbands passing. What we're talking about is, and that can be letting go of that energy, because every once in a while I feel that kind of energy around me of, things seem to have a better shape. My life seemed to have a better shape than now, but not true. Okay. Dorothy, a few days before the solar eclipse are for resting. Have a good solar eclipse, everyone. Take a step towards something that feels creative, meaningful, and inspiring to you. Yay! And on Dorothy's thought, we are going to leave. Everybody go be inspired. Find something meaningful. And if nothing else, just try to do something you haven't done before to feel creative. Bye-bye, everybody. Have a good day. And I'll be on again next Tuesday talking about God knows what. Bye.